Hello, world. Welcome to WFHR's Rapid Support, proudly brought to you by Crockett Septic for this August 25th, 2025. I have your host, James, here. We're joined right now by our good friend David Farnborough for Realty Radio. One of our favorite segments. Every month we get to hang out with David, talk a little bit about realty, local realty, world realty, all of these subjects. Today, David, I love the question for today. I love the approach to today's episode. Why do people hate realtors?
Yeah, it's wonderful to be with you, James. I'm glad to be back in the studio with you. Now, I hope that not everybody hates me, but when you look at the list of the most hated professions, right up there with politicians and journalists and lawyers is, for some reason, realtors. And often I've wondered about that, and I've tried to sort of identify it. And I've come to the conclusion that in most cases, it's because people really don't know what we do.
Yeah.
So people see a little bit of what we do and they think, oh, well, they haven't done much.
Yeah, I think in just, when I have heard this kind of thing before, and the professions you listed to me, well, one of these things is not like the other, and that being realtor. And you're talking about somebody who is kind of the middle person to help you get this home, this gigantic purchase, something that, most people, it's the biggest purchase of their lives. And I think that to piggyback on what you're saying, David, a lot of people look at this as a sale, like any sales job. And any kind of salesmanship, and they almost compare it to car dealerships and some of these things and stuff. And that's where I think, to your point, it gets a little bit the gray area of what does a realtor do.
That's absolutely right. And, I've bought a few cars since I've lived here in Rapids, and I've dealt with some great car salespeople over at our local Ford dealership, and they've been really nice, very kind, very helpful. Obviously, they're in a sales job. They're trying to sell a car, but I haven't felt terrible pressure. I haven't felt that anyone's being dishonest. And I think that's probably the difference between someone who is a salesperson and somebody who is maybe a high pressure, dishonest salesperson.
When I was growing up, one of my favorite people, my Uncle Rich, he was a car salesman. He was the greatest I ever seen at it. He was so good at this job. But part of what I liked about him was he wouldn't try to sell a car to somebody that they were just going to bring it back a month later. His return, people returning to him and stuff, his reputation. And I learned from a young age, all sales is about reputation. And so I don't know how much this really has existed for that long, as far as the kind of thing you see in TV show and movies of the used car salesman and the shady used car salesman and everything. I would imagine that if you were doing that, you probably wouldn't stay in business very long. Yeah. And realty is the biggest of all of these to me as far as reputation goes. And if you're shoddy at this, or you're just not good at it, let alone if you're shady or something like that, chances are you're not going to stay in the business very long.
That's absolutely right. And I think what tends to happen is you do get some fly-by-night people who come in and maybe they're not so principled or not so good at their job, but they don't last long in the business. Most of the realtors here, I don't know what the stats are, but I would say probably 70% of the realtors here in Rapids are people who've been doing this for at least 5 years. And when you talk to them, you know that they're not just trying to sell a house. They are trying to, in most cases, match the person with the right house. Now, of course, there is a difference between being a buyer's agent and a listing agent. So a listing agent is trying to sell the house, and that's more of a marketing job, and that's got a different emphasis.
Yeah.
But generally, they're not going to be the person who is showing the buyer the house, and so they're not trying to press that particular house on that particular buyer.
Like most things, I think, in society, David, when it comes to disliking them, distrusting them, hating them even, I think 9 times out of 10 it becomes a matter of, just not understanding, just, information not being shared. We fear what we don't know. We dislike what we don't know and those things. So I thought I got some prompts here for you. I'm going to give you some kind of just kind of lead off of these, if you don't mind. And
that would be great.
Similar things that we've heard in conversations many times. My first one, don't you just stick a sign in the yard and sit back and wait for a big check to come your way? Isn't that what all a realtor does, David?
That would be wonderful. In fact, it would be wonderful.
It'd be a nice gig.
Because I wouldn't take pride in my work if that's all I did.
Yeah.
Now, you do need a sign outside the house. You need a good sign. You need one that shows up well from the street in night and day. And you need something that's not going to be obscured by our Wisconsin weather or blown away when we get our strong winds. So putting a sign up is important. But I'll give you an idea of how putting a sign up might seem to be the only thing you need to do, but actually all the other steps are really important. I had a home I sold quite recently. It was actually a pretty high value home, and the sign people put the sign up actually the day before the listing, which I was a little bit annoyed with them about because I can get in trouble for that. But I couldn't get them back to take it down and put it back up again. The day before the listing, someone was walking past and they approached the homeowner and said, "Hey, I see your house is up for sale." That turned out to be the eventual buyer of that home. Now, did I need to do all the other things I did? Well, look at all the other things I did. I helped the homeowner prepare their home for sale. I brought in a staging consultant whom I paid, and it was quite a high fee because it was a very large house. I brought in a drone photographer to do photos and videos, so that was another $300. And people don't realise that's all coming out of the realtor's pocket. I did a full 3D virtual tour of the home. I put together a marketing video. I spent a lot of money on advertising. Now, that meant that we did drive other showings. We had other buyers who were interested. But it occurred to me that if I hadn't done all those things, if I just stuck the for sale sign up, then that buyer would be there with no competition. They wouldn't have any attitude that they had to make their offer competitive. They would have offered a lowball, and, well, all we've got is that one buyer. That's all we would have done. So even if you don't think all those other things are necessary, really the amount of work that you put in as a realtor does pay off. And in the end, we're able to get that particular homeowner more than they expected for that house and to sell it well within the time scale that they needed. And everybody was happy.
A friend of mine at the school I work at and everything was waiting around for. He says I could stay in the meeting a little longer. I'm like, okay, he's waiting around for a ride. And I figure it's just a ride. It's an Uber rider, and he will only go to this specific Uber rider in part because of the little add-ons that they do. The things that other Uber drivers don't do. And he asked this person, hey, how much do you spend on bottled water? How much do you spend on these things? And it said like $20-$30 a ride or a day. I'm sorry, a day on these added things. I'm like, well, how much do you think that gets you more rides? And the guy just laughed like hysterically, like of course it gets me more rides because of these add-ons. People like that I do these little extra things that he adds on. Now he takes it out of his own pocket, but he looks at it and it's like, I'm still finishing in the black. I'm still working. This is still working out for me. This is an Uber ride is very different than buying a home. You're not going to be doing this every week or anything like that, but you are going to know more and more people that are going to buy homes. And one of the things that we almost hand down, much like our music or our recipes, is our realtors. And these people, well, I bought a house from so-and-so, and it went really well. I can recommend them.
Yes.
Things like that. So it really does. Those add-ons, while, I don't like it coming out of your pocket, David, being fair, I get it. I see why you do that. And I can see the return on investment in it. And it also shows the added bonus of getting a realtor as opposed to just trying to do it yourself.
Yeah, and this is a key concept in marketing. It's what anyone who's done a marketing class will know. It is called product differentiation. It's like when you go you go to buy a car. Basically, I mean, I'm not a petrol head or a gas head, whatever they call them in America. But I like cars, but I'm not mad keen on them. I don't care really what my car is. So if I go to buy a car, I'm looking to see what it's got that's different from the others. So, okay, something like really good gas mileage, that might be a really good product differentiation for me. And it's the same with your Uber driver. It's the same with your realtor. So if you're going to go to a realtor that doesn't do 3D virtual tours, then, well, maybe you want to come to me, because I'm going to sell to that guy in Florida who hasn't even seen your house. Mm-hmm. And, I'm going to provide floor plans. But if the other guy doesn't, well, someone from out of state might not be able to see what your house is like. Mm-hmm. But that's the sort of product differentiation that I like to provide for my clients.
Okay. All right. Nicely done. Did a good job with that one, David. I got another one for you here. Okay. All right. So let's see how you do with this one. Isn't being a realtor an easy job? Anyone could do. Heck, I might even become a realtor.
Yeah, I hear this a lot. And what we find is that a lot of people do try to be a realtor. The exams are, I don't want to say they're not that difficult. You do have to study. It's something like an 80-hour course, and you do have to do exams. But basically, if you've passed your exams at most public schools, you should be able to do it. And as a job, doing the job is not difficult, but doing it well is. And again, you're talking about people who stay in the business for a long time versus people who are just in there for a year. And we do see that a lot of people come into the business for a year and then they leave because they've realised they're not making enough money. It's not worth renewing their license. People don't realise we have to pay license fees. We also have to pay membership fees to the realtor organisation, and depending on which brokerage we're at, there are other things involved. So I think for my first year in real estate, I paid about $2,000, just to buy into the profession. And people who are not making a decent return will not stay in. Now, sometimes there are people who can, people who've got another job. People who have a spouse or partner who have sufficient earnings that they don't need to earn anything. But generally speaking, people will not stay in real estate if they can't make a go of it. So it's fairly easy to get into, but it's hard to stay in. And that's why you see, like I said, around our Wisconsin Rapids area, we've got a sort of core of people who've been in the business 5 years or longer, and those are going to be the ones who hang around.
And, I think that this happens with a lot of jobs in society. A lot of people look at, hourly jobs this way. And most of people, including myself, could never do them. I've mentioned this many times about fast food. I've worked in a fast food job once. That's it. I don't make it here, man. You will not find me in fast food industry. Not because I don't respect it or I don't like it. It's because I know myself and I am not that fast at making food.
Right.
These individuals that are able to do these jobs excel in these situations, in these certain things. And a big part of our lives is, hey, where do I put my skill set with a job that I can make a good living at? The people that end up in real estate have that skill set, have that ability to be able to do this. If you don't have that skill set, you can have all the education you want. You're probably not going to survive in the industry. We see this in radio all the time. I would say in 2 decades of radio, the people I've worked with are equal 50-50 of people who went to school for radio and people who got a chance and got their foot in the door and they just stayed in the room. It's a little bit of a mix. And I think you can find that in almost any profession where you find people who come out of school and they're good at it. And then people who come out of school start doing it and realize, oh, I spent 4 years and all that money on this education, and now I do not want to do this for a living. Most jobs, you got to do them to really know. There's certain things in life that you can't figure out unless you're doing it.
Yes, that's right. And something like real estate has a lot of different aspects to it. So we are selling homes, we are selling offices, we are renting offices. Very rarely do we rent homes these days. Most of the time people go to the internet for that. We're also helping people buy homes. We're helping people buy, commercial premises. we've got to do a lot of things like marketing. We need to have a marketing head, but we also need to have a very good customer service head. So that's really number one. You need to be very good at customer service. I think you need to be oriented towards the customer outcome. That, I think, is very important.
Do you think, David, that it helps having because one of the questions that I was thinking of with this is I would prefer a realtor that lives in my city. That, you know, it doesn't have to be my neighbor, but I like somebody that, if not, maybe not necessarily the same city I live in, but a next door one or something like that. I like the idea of this. I do think to your, you know, what you were talking about earlier, that Florida person that wants to see it virtually and everything. I think there are outliers to this when you're looking at moving to another state or something that's a completely different thing. But if I'm looking, I want to stay in town, I want to stay in the same school district or something along those lines. I'm looking for a realtor that knows the area and everything. That's another added on part of this. I think that it adds to what you do.
I think that helps. I think if you're buying a home in Stevens Point or Marshfield, you could use a realtor from Rapids, like me. but also, you've got your Stevens Point realtors who can really sell a home here in Rapids because it's not too far away. The market's not too different. They really know what the different sort of rules are because we're close enough. Now, when you start to deal with a realtor that's based in Madison or Green Bay, it's a different sort of thing. So I'm not saying they can't do it. If you have a really diligent, conscientious realtor based in Milwaukee, they may be coming up to Rapids 5 or 6 times during the course of the transaction to help you sell your home. But I doubt it. I think most of them will probably come up once, and they will, maybe twice if they need a second visit to take the pictures. And they will tend to do everything remotely. Now, will they know about our market? They won't know about our market, but a really good, really conscientious realtor will be able to do the research to sell a property that's not in their particular knowledge in a city that they have knowledge of. So what we often see is that homes that are sold in Rapids by realtors from out of town are often overpriced because they're used to dealing with a bigger metropolitan market. It's not a hard and fast rule because, like I said, there are some who are very good. They do a lot of research, but generally you're better off with someone from your local area.
All right. Speaking with David Farnborough on Realty Radio here. And David, you've done a great job with these. You're 2 for 2 for so far. I got just a couple more I want to see how you do with. Here's another one. What do I care if my realtor shows me 10 houses, then I buy through another agent? They still get the salary after all. Here's another one that can be a misconception.
Right. This is something that most people don't realize, and this is because the way that our economy works, certainly our economy as far as real estate agencies are concerned, real estate agents generally do not get any sort of salary or stipend. They are usually commission only. So in most cases, there will be some where they're salaried, but that's really very, very rare. And most of those that are salaried don't get as much commission. But in the vast majority of cases, agents are commission only. So if they show you 10 houses and then you go off and buy through someone else, they've basically worked for you as a volunteer. So most agents will do that as good faith. They'll want to help you out, and hopefully they'll do a good job, and you'll come back to them. Some agents will insist that you sign an agency agreement straight away. That's up to the individual agent. That just depends on their business practice. But if you do not have an agency agreement with your agent and they show you lots of houses and then you go with someone else, they are not getting paid.
The old standard, time is money, David. Do you think that with that being said, that you could see more contracts getting involved with realtors and people looking for homes or that kind kind of thing where I hate the idea of anybody wasting their time, and especially when money is involved.
What I tend to do is I take a fairly relaxed attitude because I don't like to be the guy that's pushing the contract on anyone. Also, I think that if I do a good job, someone will like working with me and they'll come back to me anyway. But I usually do ask them to sign a contract before they make an offer, because that will allow me to represent them, to negotiate on their behalf, and it also sets the terms of the commission that I will earn.
And good on you for that. And I do think, to that point, David, and going back to what we were talking about before about the reputation business that real estate can be, and handing these things down among family members. I don't know if other families are like this or not, but my family has always done this, whether it's in Illinois or in Wisconsin. If we worked with a realtor and had a good experience, we just keep going back to that person. My family, I think in total has probably bought 3 or 4 homes in the Wisconsin area, central Wisconsin area here, in between Nakusa and Rapids, all through the same realtor. All through the same person.
And why wouldn't you? That's the thing.
Right,
why wouldn't you go back to the same person?
So the idea of doing a good job and investing into that job and everything, it not only has that effect of making sure that the client is happy, of course, which is a big deal, but the idea of the reputation part of this, and other family members, it's a big family. They're going to have other homes that are going to be sold or want to be sold or bought or something.
That's right, and that's why it's not just about making a sale or making a deal. It's about actually giving the best service you can to somebody so that they think you're good enough to recommend you to someone else.
One more, but it's probably the toughest one, David, I think. And I think it's one that not only I, but many in the audience might have thought of as well. I can just sell the house myself and save the money. Win-win. Why has nobody ever thought of this? This is a fantastic idea. I can just do it myself. Oh, this should be fine. No problem.
Right. And
real quick, David, I know somebody who thought this about a year ago. They are still paying for it, but please, you go ahead.
Right. And that's what happens. You get what you pay for. And yes, you can sell your house on your own. Yes, you can save money. But how are you going to set the market price? Are you going to go and look on online? Are you going to look at the Zillow's estimate? Well, the Zillow's estimator has not been to your house. They don't know that you've fully updated the basement, that you've put an additional bathroom in, that you've maintained everything perfectly, and that you've actually recently built a new 3-stall garage with a workshop. They've got no idea. All they are looking at is the stats. They're looking at the recent rise in house prices. They're looking at what you paid for your house. They are looking at things like the tax data, and we know that the tax assessments can be off. So that's the first thing. You're not going to be able to set the market price as accurately as if you have advice from a realtor. Second thing is the preparation. Now, when I visit homes with buyers, I know exactly what buyers look for. Little couple of tips if you are trying to sell without a realtor: make sure your kitchen and your bathroom are spotlessly clean, because those are things that buyers really look for. And if you have a dirty kitchen, they just will not like the house at all. So I know those things because I've taken buyers through houses. So when I'm advising a seller, I know what a buyer will worry about and what they won't. If you're not going to be using a realtor, if you're doing it on your own, you're going to be Googling. And what might be true on Google might not be true in our particular market. It might not be true for your particular house, the particular size of house, and the particular demographic that you're appealing to. What marketing are you going to do? You're going to buy one of those red and white house sale signs and stick it outside? Well, what if they call you? How do you know how to negotiate a price with the buyer if you're not a trained negotiator? What advertising are you doing? Are you just sticking it online? Are you going to someone who'll charge you $100 to put it in the MLS, maybe, or $500, or whatever it is now? You're not doing the marketing that a realtor will do for you. So, yes, you might save yourself some commission, but you might get a much better sale price if you sell through a commission, and then the money you're paying the realtors will be worth it.
The gentleman that I'm talking about, he knew the person he was selling the home to, and they felt they've known each other their whole lives. They could easily do this between themselves, and everything would be fine. They're not speaking to each other right now because this has gotten between them, because there are so many little things that neither of them had any idea that you needed to do before signing over a home. Oh, and they did it in cash too, by the way, David.
Oh, dear.
So, yeah, you can only imagine what this is like. And here are two lifetime friends that are not speaking to each other because of this. This is an extreme situation, of course.
Right.
But I also bring it up in part because, well, even when you know the other person and you feel like, oh, well, what's the big deal here or anything? There are so many other things that you have to go through to be able to sell something like this, to be able to do a purchase like this and make it official, among all the other things that David is talking about. And then just the things that you might not even think about or know about. You know, a realtor goes into a house and they're going to inspect, they're going to look things through with a fine comb. Whether you're selling it to somebody you know or not, you may think you know your home, but you probably haven't looked at it with another set of eyes. Most anything in life is better with another extra set of eyes coming into it and being able to look at it.
That's absolutely true. And while a realtor isn't a home inspector, we don't have that level of qualifications, and we don't spend 2 or 3 hours in a home. We just spend, half an hour while we're going through doing a showing. We are trained to look for certain things. We do know what would be considered defects. We can point to things and say to a buyer, look, that might be a safety issue, or that particular feature of this house is going to be a problem for your mortgage lender. Whereas if you go ahead and buy without a realtor, you're not going to know those things.
Mm-hmm. There are some other questions I have, David. I'd like to do this again sometime. I think that'd be fun. Maybe especially if you get any feedback or I get any feedback from our audience about questions they have. Maybe we could do a two-parter of this or something.
That would be a great idea. I think we'll look at doing that next month.
I always appreciate the topics, the free-form nature of these, and we appreciate your guys' feedback out there on this one. Feel free to reach out to David or I with that, and be on the lookout for another edition of Realty Radio with David Farnborough. David, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me, James.
We'll talk again next month. We'll talk soon. And thank you, everybody, for joining us for another edition of WFHR's Rapids Report, proudly brought to you by Crockett Septic.